Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order of the Technology Advisory Board on Thursday, October 13th. We do not have minutes of the prior meeting, so
I would say that we would pass on that agenda.
we're going to pass on that agenda item and turn to number 2, update on town's replacement of the current systems, billing and collection.
Certainly. We entered a contract with QDS, which I apprised the board previously, and we had a kickoff meeting about 6 weeks ago with the company, and at the present time, they're in the process of just gathering data from us, looking at our file structures, looking at our organization chart, just trying to develop a template to show to us to start a rollout. We did amend the schedule. Originally, we were discussing having go first with general billing first, then motor vehicle excise, and then property taxes and utility. It was clear that the general billing is going to be much more complex. It involves more departments in town and hence more staff. Because I'm not familiar with the application itself. When I was being asked questions, understandably by departments who would have to let their staff be free to do training and such, we were not in a position to give them the amount of time and commitment which would be necessary. The company itself suggested that they generally start with the tax package before they start with general billing. So based upon that wisdom, we've changed the schedule. So we're going to roll out motor vehicle excise first, which should be up and running in January of 23, followed by real estate personal property tax billing, be ready for the first bill for fiscal 24, which is mailed out by June 30th, 23, then water and sewer, then general billing.
I actually like that. I think I'm assuming excise is the simplest thing, and that way it gives everyone a flavor of the system on the simplest once a year thing, and then you move to property tax, and then water and sewers, is a fluctuating thing. Less sounds like you know what I mean. If you had asked me initially, again, I wouldn't have thought that the general billing, but I would have said, in that order of those things, that makes the most sense, just from my knowledge of complexity. General billing, I don't know, but anyone else have any comment? I mean, it just makes sense to me.
I guess I did kind of have a question. Is it because of the broad scope of people? You don't want to get to the last thing and find out you missed a set of functionality. So is general billing harder because of?
It's broad. It's the number of departments involved. That the department, in order to do scheduling to keep their offices open, they need to know what the time commitments were.
And also realize that, it's like when you bill, there's different types of billing. There's, standard billing, which is the same every year, ones that fluctuate like the water. So, you know what I mean? There's all these fixed price, everything's different. And so those things are probably this wide. Whereas when you look at excise tax, you know what that is. It's set by the state. It's freaking solid and done.
Well, I figure it's easier because it gives you more
And
time
then-
to work with it.
then you
got
know
the
the
time. If
system.
it doesn't go out for the next day, that's not a big deal, right? Or something. But I just want to make sure we don't, because sometimes if I do a conversion, I like take the easiest thing first and take the hardest thing second.
Yeah.
So you find out that if you miss something big or something, and then you just roll out. But
The processing of generating bills and taking in payments is the same in every module. The true difference is just the number of pay types and charge codes and setup, but it's the analogy is it takes just as long to write a check for $10 as it does for $1,000. So it's one check and it's written. So there's just more people involved, but the process would would be the same for each department.
Okay. Good
Yeah,
idea.
so, yeah. Sounds good.
So what's the timing of it again?
The actual rollout to go live for motor vehicle would be in January of 2023. So
Okay.
all these months, over the next, actually next 60 days,
Okay,
there's, of course, doing the setup in the new system, validating the data that's brought into it, doing a couple of trial runs, and basically they're gonna rebuild what was built in the prior system for last year to see if we come up with the same results, which is
Yeah.
what you would expect. And then there'll be the training. Then working with third-party providers such as our processing, lockbox processing, make sure that there are no issues with the bill scannability, and our online payment system. That's another third-party provider that we have to export files to them regularly so that people who want to pay online will have the most current information. So there's a lot of third parties that are involved in today, which issues that you did not have 20 years ago.
yeah,
But so much to do with anything involving technology has more partners than it used to.
Yeah, and I like a phased rollout anyway. You know, I hate the big bang things.
Oh God, I'd never do a big bang again. I mean, a little bit of a tangent, the third-party provider, did you say one time that there's a law like they can't charge extra or something, and then that limits us to who we can deal with, or? 'Cause I think the last time I tried to pay online, they wanted extra, so I said, no, and I wrote a check.
Oh, no, actually, they're allowed to, that's actually the process that even a lot of private entities use is they use a third-party provider because credit card companies, there's not a law. People say, oh, it's the law. It's not the law. It's the agreement the credit card company has with the merchants in order to encourage people to use credit cards. So there was not to be an upcharge for using a credit card or a surcharge. But what they, and that's the way the world was, because the only time you used a credit card was when you were at the location you charged, and simple. But with more business on the internet, there was a recognition that the process that the merchants couldn't process the transactions themselves. So what the credit card companies agreed that there's a third party that's providing a service that is processing a transaction, then the cost of that transaction, not their cost, not what MasterCard or Visa or Discover is charging the merchant, but whatever that entity is charging you doing the processing, that's allowed to be added. And of course, how they develop their fee structures is they take some sort of average. They know what their profit margin is, so they know in some transactions, their $2.95 fee is going to generate a lot of revenue, and other times they might take a loss. But it's all formulaic for them. But and
right,
then
just like if you're using Square or PayPal or some kind of thing.
it's the same
Yeah.
concept. The other difficulty is, of course, the other way a private merchant can deal with the higher fees is, of course, they just raise the price of their product and someone's paying by cash to make a bigger profit margin. The thing is with us, with the taxes, we can't increase the tax to cover the transaction fee. And under state law, we must collect 100% of the bill. So as you may be aware with the credit card processing, is they take their money off the top. So you charge $100. Let's say their fee is 2% of the transaction. They actually remit to the merchant $98, not the $100. Well, if you have a tax bill and it's $10,000 is the payment, and they're taking their 2%, 200, so they're going to remit to the town $9,800. Under the law, that would consider the taxpayer not paying their full bill. And because you're not allowed to pay a charge without an appropriation, So it's not as though, well, I'll just charge the $200. No, you don't have an appropriation. Town meeting didn't authorize that expenditure. So that's the extra complexity that government had. And just a little history of that. The first company that got it of the credit card companies was Discover. And they, back in the early 90s, started saying, yes, that you can add transaction fees. And they said specifically to the government. And they were kind of clever, and they said that you can add transaction fees provided that every other credit card you accept allows you to pass the transaction fees in both Visa and MasterCard and American Express weren't at that point yet. So Discover got a little, grew a lot of their business through government agencies because they were the only one allowing the fee to be passed on to the client. So, but over time, and as credit cards and online transactions grew, the other all the credit card companies now allow so various schemes. Scheme not in a negative light,
Yeah.
in the process of covering the cost.
Okay,
Learn something new every day.
so that's knocks out number 2.
Yep.
If you want to talk about future meetings, Dave, when do you need a meeting from us? Are you going to need anything?
I would think that perhaps it might be worthwhile to have a meeting in early December, just so that we could show you what sort of technology capital might be under consideration.
Sure.
It would be a short meeting, because clearly would not be at the point that there would be any presentation or anything, but usually you get this update after the capital plan is released and everything. And I think it might be good if you just see what's up for consideration before the select board actually vote to release the capital plan, which happens at the end of December.
The special time is 2 weeks. I didn't see anything in that article that we should talk about.
Technology, no, there is nothing primarily focused on technology. Of course, construction today,
Yeah, I
no
saw
building,
those,
yeah,
yeah.
no building exists without technology today.
Oh, I thought you meant the overall, the increase. They need like 2 increases, right? One for Clover and one for who's the other building.
The Rich Hill demolition, no,
Yeah,
we're
Rich Hill.
withdrawing it. The bids
Oh, really?
came in excellent, and we think that probably had to do with the timing. Because the fall, some of the contractors don't have work, and they want to keep busy.
Crew
So,
visit.
and second is, there's really not much with the supply chain issue, because you're not building anything, you're tearing things down and grading and work. So the 3 bidders that the town had that responded in the spring, which all were much higher than the budget that was appropriated, and hence we canceled the bids and did some changes. We picked up some of the work in-house and then went back out to bid with the timing to be such right before town meeting, so we know the exact number. Well, it attracted, and I think for that very reason there's some slowdown in construction, in winter time.
Oh, all of a sudden, and with the housing construction slow down, people are,
Yep, so we got 7 bidders now. The other the previous 3 bidders bid again, and their prices were still like they were before. But the other 4 who did not bid before were obviously hungry for the business, and their prices were much lower. So the bid came in to do the complete project under budget. So anyways, that article is being withdrawn. Unfortunately, we can't say the same for the Emery Grover building, but that's a good news story without knowing that is when the project was approved for funding back in the spring, the PBBC had said that the amount that's going to town meeting probably would not be enough because of everything based upon the cost of materials and supply chain issues, and of course the cost of construction was going up. The finance committee suggested that they just go forward with the original budget in the same idea if once you actually have bids in hand, if it's necessary to amend the appropriation, you can come back and it'll be considered. Well, the last cost estimate, in the cost estimate is a whole industry in there, tracking supplies, cost of supplies, supply chains, construction bids. About 6 weeks before the bids were issued, they were assuming about a $4.4 million increase in the cost of the project. The final bids came in. The town did what's known as a pre-qualification process, which you're allowed to do projects in excess of $10 million. So what it basically is there's a pre-qualification with the project manager who determines whether the ability of the companies to do the work.
Okay.
So basically what it means is then the low bid always wins because it's clear that you have already determined that it can do the work. So that was one thing, and there were 5 pre-qualified general contractors, and 4 of them submitted bids in the lowest bidder. Not a company that's ever done work for Needham, but they've done other buildings, usually libraries and town halls, but they had a good reputation. Lowest bidder came in and their price was 2.7 million over the what's appropriated. So that's what's going to town meeting. So although it's 2.7 million more, it's less than 4.4 that only 60 days ago everybody was envisioning was going to be the issue.
Yeah, the only note is Dave, is when that stuff starts up with meetings and stuff, can we try to get a seat at the table to review the technology piece?
I would suggest that you reach out to the chair because really the meetings are done.
I'm gonna say we're probably
Yeah.
too late again, right?
Yes, because the contract is under, I mean, they're executing the contract in 10
Okay.
days. So, yes, I know we keep mentioning it to BBBC, but it always gets overlooked. Although they do take input from Roger and the IT folks, whereas they used to not even do that.
Yeah.
But yes,
Okay. I mean, it is school, so it's really not our headache, but
so the
schools has their own technology and they have to deal with it. I
Yeah.
mean, they already found out all their problems, so they, brought it up. And if he wanted our help, he would have reached out.
If they reached out to Roger, and that's what's important, I think.
Yeah. Okay, for future meetings, so do you want to try for December 1st?
it looks good on my schedule. If it works for you.
Thursday.
Thursday, December 1st will be a week after Thanksgiving.
So work looks good, but let me talk to the boss. On both calendars. December 1st is.
Okay, so we'll put it in the books for December 1st.
Okay.
4:30 again?
Yeah. And,
It'll be reserved in this room for you.
okay, and do you want to do January 2, or what are you thinking?
Probably February would
Okay,
be good.
and we'll just do one for February so we have it in the books. Put it for February 2nd.
Yep.
Even though I have no idea.
Groundhog's Day.
Yeah,
And by that time, we would know if it all worked out with the motor vehicle.
okay, yeah, we'll have a good, we'll have a thumbs up, a thumbs down discussion. Okay.
Groundhog Day. I love that movie. My wife thinks I'm crazy.
Okay,
And that's not the only reason, but anyway.
yeah. Okay, so we're set on future meetings. Any topics to discuss? Other than I want to bring up immutable storage at the next one. You know, when Roger's here, I'm sorry, Dave, but I really think that we need to back all our systems up on drives, pull them off the net and just sit there so that we have everything up to today saved. So worst case scenario, we have all your history generally. I also want to have a discussion about how, so every one of my clients has lost data in the cloud. And I want to know how we're going to protect all this new data now that we're moving to the cloud. And are we stripping the data off once a year to keep track of what it is? Because when it goes, it goes. Because when you lose cloud stuff, there's no backups, there's nothing. It's their systems. And did you have Kaseya?
No.
Oh, I had clients with Kaseya. They lost their knowledge base, terabytes of data, terabytes gone. All their knowledge stuff, all their history of all their tickets, they have no idea what happened. All this stuff that was built because it was all in Kaseya, gone.
Let Roger know.
Yeah,
for the
just,
December
I don't, you know, he's danced on it a couple of times and I don't want to be jerky about it, Dave. You understand. I just, it's like, I'd rather have him back it up once, even if it's just the simplistic thing of backing it up, pulling it off the net. And then, you know, even if we don't do it again for 2 years, at least I know we lose everything. There is an advantage to having multiple systems on multiple things. And for most reasons, the financial systems and stuff usually aren't the stuff that's hacked. It's the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
You know, for some reason, they don't go after, you know, financial systems because the other side is there's so much data they have trouble at. You know, hackers aren't, unless someone's looking for that data, that's not, they want engineering stuff. They want, you know, and especially when we start looking at, you know, that Public Works is now scanning everything and getting rid of all their paper on all their plot lines and all that stuff, you know, think about that you'd want to have that stuff backed up somewhere where we can get to it because it is kind of permanent data. And even if it's 5 years old, it'd be valuable.
Yes, just one correction to that. They are looking to scan the storage for ease of access, but they can't get rid of the paper because state law requires us to
Either
keep it.
scan but if they scan it, you can get rid of it.
No.
Oh, really?
I have to print out my emails and keep them in paper.
You're kidding.
No. So because that's the public, and you do understand why the Secretary of State rules that way is because think of all the different medias that we've had over the last 40 years, 8-track
Oh, yeah.
tapes, microfiche stuff, but what's still around?
Well, you heard the old story. It happened like 30 years ago. They had, the feds had a tape they needed to read, and they couldn't find the machine till they went to the Smithsonian, turned the machine on to read it.
What?
They went to the Smithsonian to
Yeah,
the museum,
So
turned the machine on, got the data out, you know, transferred it to 9 different technologies to get it modern.
Right.
get that
Please.
card reader out.
Hey, I have a diskette reader. I actually looked up a diskette that was 30 years old. I went through 10 before I found one that was good, that had the data I wanted. I was just curious about a document I wrote a long time ago. I couldn't find the original copy.
So there are retention periods for records. So there are some records that you don't have to keep that long, like for administrative ease items that you only have to keep for a year or so. That's not problematic when people are not going to print out. But for instance, insurance claims that are filed against the town, they have record periods of 7 years after the claim is settled. So that's why something like that we have to print out and save. But from the practicality of finding documents, you go into your storage, electronic storage, look for something.
Sure.
Because when we do have to research records from just even 10 years ago when we didn't
Yeah.
have the level of technology. It takes a long time
Yeah.
going through those boxes to find things.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
What about, the prospective new members? We can't discuss because no one's here, correct?
You know, it's not our choice. It's actually the selectmen, and
Yeah.
they're interviewing them.
Oh, they are. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're gonna be doing interviews. I don't know, I got a date. And you know, everything's changed from the way it used to be, is I used to get calls,
Yeah.
you know, oh yeah, I interviewed this guy. You know, now they're interviewing all these people. I don't know Marcus, he's the one in charge, so, you know, I don't know what has happened. Miles has been organizing it up in the town manager's office. And
Okay.
by the way, doing a great job.
He's, it's what they just have, with COVID, a whole new interest of people interested in
Yeah.
volunteering and stuff. And
Sure.
a whole host of people who were longtime volunteers stepped down. So they got a backlog of appointments to make and people to
Crazy.
interview. So it used to be sometimes a lot, you know, like we're begging people to come on to committees, but now they
Right.
have more applicants than there are positions. So the interviewing process is that much longer.
Yeah.
And
So it's
Well, yeah,
actually
the-
next
the way I
Thursday.
got pulled into here was, I was being sworn in for the Indian Human Rights Committee, and they saw what I did for a living, and they said, oh, technology. That's how I ended up here.
Yeah, it looks like next Thursday is the 6 to 8 PM is when they're doing the interviewing.
Oh, okay.
And I guess,
So we may have people by next meeting.
yeah, if the selectmen voted on it after that, you know, they meet every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. Right?
Yes, correct. I think it's, if they're interviewing folks next week, they'll certainly ratify them in the month of
Yeah.
November, so.
And like I said, I have no idea, because I don't know Marcus. I don't know whether he'll talk to me or not. You know, like there was one group of selectmen who did not want any input, that they knew better and they had no technology background. And hence we ended up with members who were pissed and frustrated and angry.
Marcus is very different. Inclusion is big with
Which is good.
Marcus, and he
Yeah.
reaches out and he wants more people to participate in
That's-
reaching a decision, so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Miles
I
is
like
taking,
Marcus
doing the
a lot.
logistics
Yeah.
of getting the.
Oh, Miles
The
has been
meetings
great
together.
with me, and you know, like I've followed up because he sent me the people, so I'm talking to them and telling them what we do
Yeah.
and how we do it. And I talked to most of the people for about an hour, you know, just to say, listen,
Yeah.
this is what it is. This is how we're doing it. You know, our meetings are at 4:30 and we're doing that so that town employees don't have to go home and come back, or that it's late at
Right.
night, and we try to restrict our meetings to an hour and a half, which we've been really good about, you know, in keeping stuff, you know, that way. And so it's actually, you know, and most of them said, okay. And I said, yeah, this, just understand that this is not stuff does not move quickly. And, you know, we're just used to it. And if you expect things, you know, you can't just go and say, oh, we're spending this kind of money, you know, it's just, you know, as you've learned, right?
Yeah.
You know, you had no idea how long some of these articles could take, you know, and, but, yeah, you know, most sound interested. Like I said, we really need security people, you know, because all three of us look, you know, yeah, it doesn't matter how much I know, I don't work in it anymore, you know, I don't work in it. In today's world, if you don't work in security, you don't know security.
Yeah.
It's changed. Right, 20 years, you know. So anything else? Are we done?
Jim, you take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
It's a quickie.
Unanimous, yeah. Yeah, new.
What's the Wi-Fi password?
Oh,
Does it need a
it
wireless?
hasn't changed, yeah. Cause
I think it's,
showing-
I think it's.
Yeah, it's
can't see.
need wireless,